Detective Marcus Chen's phone shattered the 6:34 a.m. silence on January 15, 2023. A kayaker had discovered human remains along the marshlands of Willow Creek, nestled in the Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina. After 19 years with the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation, Chen had worked dozens of cases, but something about this one made his chest tighten as he drove through the fog-shrouded mountain roads. The creek had been his jurisdiction since 2003. He remembered the Rebecca Torres case, remembered the young veterinarian's father pleading on television, remembered the distinctive turquoise running jacket found draped over a hiking post. As he approached the scene where forensic teams were already documenting the skeletal remains half buried in silt beneath a collapsed riverbank, Chen felt a chill that had nothing to do with the January mountain air. After 2 decades, Rebecca Torres had finally been found. And the evidence about to emerge would lead investigators to the last person anyone in Willow Creek expected. The marshland had been cordoned off with crime scene tape fluttering in the breeze. Forensic anthropologist Dr. Amelia Okafor and her team knelt around the remains embedded in the muddy embankment. Last week's unprecedented flooding had reshaped the creek bed, washing away decades of accumulated sediment and exposing secrets the earth had swallowed. Female, mid-20s, approximately 5 feet 6, Dr. Okafor reported as Chen approached, her gloved hands carefully brushing away mud. Significant blunt force trauma to the occipital bone. She's been here minimum 15 years, possibly longer. The anaerobic environment preserved her remarkably well, but water damage is extensive. Chen crouched beside the remains, his knees sinking into the soft ground. Among the bones were fragments of turquoise synthetic fabric, the kind that survived when cotton and wool had long since disintegrated. And then his breath caught. A small bronze compass pendant, its leather cord dissolved, but the compass itself still intact, its needle frozen in place. "Photograph everything," Chen said quietly. "Check inside that compass. There might be an inscription." Rebecca Maria Torres was born on March 22, 1978, in Charlotte, North Carolina. Her parents, Sofia and Eduardo Torres, were immigrants who'd arrived from Colombia in the 1970s. Sofia worked as a nurse at Charlotte Memorial Hospital. Eduardo owned a small auto repair shop. Rebecca was their middle child, sandwiched between 2 brothers, equally stubborn and fiercely independent. Willow Creek was a mountain town tucked into the Blue Ridge foothills, population 4,800. Its economy relied on outdoor tourism, hiking, kayaking, and fall leaf watchers who descended every October. The town was built along Willow Creek itself, a winding waterway that carved through limestone cliffs and ancient forests. This was a place where neighbors left their doors unlocked, where the Friday night football game was the week's biggest event, where everyone knew everyone's business. Rebecca had moved to Willow Creek in August 2001 after graduating from NC State's College of Veterinary Medicine. She'd accepted a position at Mountain View Animal Clinic, the only veterinary practice within 30 miles. The pay was modest, but Rebecca had fallen in love with the mountains during a college camping trip. She wanted peace, purpose, and a community where her work mattered. She rented a converted barn apartment on the outskirts of town, sharing it with her college friend, Priya Nakamura. Priya worked remotely as a graphic designer, which meant she could live anywhere with decent internet. The 2 women had been inseparable since freshman year, hiking partners, confidants, amateur photographers who spent weekends chasing waterfalls. Rebecca was a runner, but not the competitive type. She'd taken it up in vet school as stress relief and discovered she loved the meditative rhythm, the way her mind could wander while her body moved. In Willow Creek, her routine solidified quickly. Wake at 5:45, pull on her running gear, lace up her turquoise Brooks Ghost shoes. At 6 o'clock sharp, she'd step out and begin her 5-mile loop along Willow Creek Trail. The trail was spectacular, a packed dirt path that followed the creek through hemlock forests, past limestone outcroppings, eventually reaching Eagle Point Overlook where you could see 3 states on a clear day. Mornings were usually quiet, just dedicated locals and the occasional early rising tourist. Rebecca loved the familiarity, the predictable cast of characters. The elderly couple who speed walked in matching visors, the teenager training for cross-country, the solitary man who always seemed to be sketching by the creek. Davis Monroe paid particularly close attention. From his bench near the trailhead, he'd watch Rebecca stretch, offer friendly waves, sometimes hold up his sketchbook to show her his latest watercolor of the creek at sunrise. September 12, 2003, was a Friday, the kind of crystalline autumn morning that made people understand why others moved to the mountains. Rebecca woke at 5:45 as always. From her loft bedroom, Priya heard the familiar sounds: the coffee maker gurgling, Rebecca moving quietly through the apartment, the soft click of the front door at 5:58. Elena Vasquez, a 71-year-old retired postal worker, saw Rebecca pass the creek overlook parking area that morning at 6:04. "Morning, Mrs. Vasquez," Rebecca had called out, her turquoise jacket catching the early light. Elena waved back, watching the young woman's dark ponytail disappear around the bend. This would be the last confirmed sighting of Rebecca Torres alive. When Priya woke at 7:30, she noticed Rebecca's running shoes weren't by the door. Unusual, but not alarming. Maybe Rebecca had decided to extend her run. By 8 o'clock, concern crept in. Rebecca was meticulous about her schedule. She had appointments at the clinic starting at 9 o'clock. At 8:15, Priya called Rebecca's cell phone. It rang from the kitchen counter. Rebecca always left it behind when running. "I need to disconnect," she'd say. At 8:45, Priya drove her Subaru along Rebecca's route, her hands gripping the steering wheel too tightly. When she reached Eagle Point Overlook, her heart plummeted. There, on the wooden observation platform, was Rebecca's turquoise jacket, neatly folded. And beside it, her running shoes, Brooks Ghost, size 8, placed side by side with the laces tucked inside. But Rebecca herself had vanished. Priya's 911 call came at 8:52. Within minutes, 2 patrol cars from Willow Creek Police Department arrived, followed shortly by county sheriff's deputies. By noon, a full-scale search operation was underway. Deputies, volunteers, search and rescue teams with dogs. Sheriff Tom Brennan coordinated the effort. He was 45 years old, had been sheriff for 8 years, and nothing like this had ever happened in Willow Creek. Missing hikers, yes, usually found within hours, dehydrated but alive. But a young woman didn't simply evaporate from a popular trail on a Friday morning. Search dogs picked up Rebecca's scent from the apartment, followed it along the trail to Eagle Point. Then the trail went cold. The dogs circled, confused, whining. The handler shook his head. Either she went into the water, which seems unlikely given the current here, or she got into a vehicle. Brennan didn't like either option. Why would Rebecca get into someone's car? And if she'd jumped or fallen from the overlook, they'd have found her body immediately. The water below was shallow, all rocks. By sunset, over 200 volunteers had combed the forests and creek banks. A helicopter from the National Guard thermal scanned the wilderness. Dive teams checked deeper pools downstream. They found nothing. No body, no additional clothing, no signs of struggle. Rebecca's family arrived that evening. Sofia Torres stepped out of the car looking like she'd aged 10 years in a single day. Eduardo was rigid, his jaw clenched. Rebecca's brothers, Miguel and Carlos, immediately joined the search teams. "My daughter didn't run away," Eduardo told Sheriff Brennan, his accented English precise and controlled. "Rebecca is responsible. She has patients scheduled. She has a life here. Someone did something to her." The media seized the story. "Veterinarian vanishes on morning run," appeared on local news, then CNN, then national networks. Rebecca's photo, warm brown eyes, brilliant smile, dark hair pulled back, appeared on television screens across the country. Tips flooded in. Someone thought they'd seen her at a truck stop in Tennessee. Someone else swore she was at an Asheville coffee shop. Every lead was investigated. None led anywhere. On Wednesday, 4 days after her disappearance, a community meeting packed the Willow Creek Community Center. Sofia Torres stood at the podium, gripping Rebecca's favorite photo, taken at her vet school graduation, smile wide, future bright. "If anyone knows anything, please come forward," Sofia said, her voice breaking. "Rebecca has so much life left to live. She's helping people's animals, their family members. We just want to bring our daughter home." In the audience sat Davis Monroe, his weathered hands folded in his lap, tears tracking down his deeply lined face. After the meeting, he approached Sophia with obvious hesitation. "I'm praying every day," Davis said quietly. "Rebecca was always so kind when she'd see me sketching. She'd stop and ask about my paintings. Such a good soul." Sophia thanked him, finding small comfort in this elderly artist's kindness. But as weeks turned into months, hope began its inevitable fade. The FBI sent profilers who delivered the cold assessment. Rebecca was likely the victim of an opportunistic crime. Someone had watched her, learned her routine, and acted when the moment was right. But who? And why was there no physical evidence? No blood, no weapon, no witnesses. Detective Marcus Chen had just transferred to the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation in 2003, barely 31 years old. The Rebecca Torres case became his first major case. He spent months reviewing phone records, questioning possible suspects, re-examining every inch of that trail. The jacket and shoes bothered him. Why fold the jacket? Why arrange the shoes so carefully? If Rebecca was fleeing, she wouldn't stop to organize her belongings. And if the attack was sudden and violent, her attacker wouldn't waste time staging a scene. "It's deliberate," Chen told his partner, Agent Rachel Delaney. "Someone wanted us to think she jumped, or maybe ran away. But it's too neat. Too thought out." Delaney nodded. "Premeditated. Someone who knew her routine, who planned this." Chen focused on the regulars, everyone who frequented Willow Creek Trail. They interviewed hikers, dog walkers, the speed walking couple, the cross-country teenager. There were a few individuals with minor criminal histories, but nothing connected them to Rebecca's disappearance. Davis Monroe was questioned early on. 72 years old, widower, lived alone in a small cabin near the creek. He'd moved to Willow Creek in 1995 after his wife passed away from Alzheimer's. He was a regular fixture on the trail, sketching, painting watercolors, occasionally teaching free art classes at the community center. Everyone in Willow Creek knew Davis Monroe, and everyone liked him. "I'd see her most mornings," Davis told Chen during the interview, his hands trembling slightly. "Beautiful young lady. Always had a smile. Always asked how my painting was going. I saw her that morning too. Waved to her around 6:15, I think. Never saw her again after that. It's heartbreaking. Just heartbreaking." Chen noted the man's obvious distress but saw no red flags. Davis Monroe seemed exactly what he appeared to be, a lonely old widower who'd lost one of the few people who regularly brightened his mornings. By summer 2004, the investigation had slowed to a crawl. Rebecca's family, with help from the community, established a $75,000 reward fund. Posters remained taped to shop windows across 3 counties, slowly fading in the sun. Anniversary searches were conducted each September, growing smaller each year. In 2006, Sophia Torres held a memorial service for Rebecca. There was no body to bury, but there was a desperate need for some form of closure. The Willow Creek Methodist Church overflowed. Davis Monroe sat in the 3rd row, his face buried in his hands, shoulders shaking. As years accumulated, the Rebecca Torres case became a cold file. Chen was promoted, eventually heading the NCSBI Cold Case Unit. He never closed Rebecca's file. Every few years, he'd pull it out, review the evidence, look for new technologies or angles. There was nothing new to find. Eduardo Torres died of a stroke in 2016. Sophia believed grief had killed him as surely as any disease. She continued living in Charlotte, but every September, she drove to Willow Creek and left flowers at Eagle Point Overlook. Turquoise roses, Rebecca's favorite color. Davis Monroe aged. By 2020, he was 89, his health failing. He'd moved into an assisted living facility in town but still requested daily drives past Willow Creek Trail. The staff obliged. He was Willow Creek's beloved artist, the gentle old man who donated dozens of watercolors to the community center. Then came the flooding of January 2023. The atmospheric river that hit the Blue Ridge Mountains was unprecedented. A week of relentless rain that sent Willow Creek rising 6 feet above its banks. The flooding reshaped the landscape, tore out trees, collapsed sections of the trail. When the water finally receded, the creek bed had been fundamentally altered. Nathan Cross, a 34-year-old environmental surveyor assessing flood damage, was documenting the erosion along the marshland section of the creek on January 15. The morning fog was still thick when he noticed something unusual. A section of creek bank had collapsed entirely, revealing a hollow space beneath. He moved closer, then stumbled backward, his surveying equipment clattering to the ground. Bones. A skull. Fragments of turquoise fabric. Chen's team extracted the remains that afternoon. Dr. Okafor worked with methodical precision, cataloging each bone, every fabric scrap, the bronze compass pendant. And one more thing. A small waterproof case, the kind runners used for keys. "What's inside?" Chen asked. Dr. Okafor carefully opened it. Inside was a house key and a small memory card, the kind from an early 2000s digital camera. Chen's pulse quickened. Could it still hold data after 20 years underwater? DNA analysis took 3 days. When the results arrived, Chen read them twice. The bones belonged to Rebecca Maria Torres. But this was only the beginning. Dr. Okafor's trauma analysis revealed a depressed skull fracture, likely from a heavy rounded object. Death would have been nearly instantaneous. And then came the discovery that changed everything. Trapped beneath the compass pendant were skin cells and blood. DNA extraction yielded a profile that didn't match Rebecca. Chen ran it through CODIS, the National Criminal Database. No match. But in 2023, there was a new tool, investigative genetic genealogy. Chen contacted Dr. James Park, a forensic genealogist who'd helped solve dozens of cold cases. Dr. Park uploaded the profile to GEDmatch and Family Tree DNA. 2 weeks later, a hit, a second cousin match. Park began building a family tree, working backward through census records, marriage certificates, obituaries. Then forward through descendants. 6 weeks later, he had a name. Davis Andrew Monroe. Chen stared at the report, his mind refusing to accept it. Davis Monroe, the elderly artist, the gentle widower, the man who'd grieved with Rebecca's family. But genetic science didn't lie. The DNA under that compass belonged to Davis Monroe. On March 8, 2023, Chen arrived at Willow Creek assisted living with a warrant and backup. Davis was 92 now, confined to a wheelchair, tethered to an oxygen tank. His room was filled with watercolors, landscapes of Willow Creek in every season. "Mr. Monroe," Chen said, his voice steady despite his racing heart, "you're under arrest in connection with the death of Rebecca Torres." Davis looked at him for a long moment. His papery hands trembled. Then his shoulders sagged. "I wondered if this day would come," he whispered. 20 years is a long time to wait. In the interrogation room, adapted for his wheelchair and medical equipment, Davis confessed. The story emerged slowly, painfully, over hours. He'd been watching Rebecca for months before that September morning. Obsessed with her youth, her vitality, her kindness. "She reminded me of my wife," Davis said, his voice barely audible. "Before the Alzheimer's took her. That brightness. That goodness. I'd lost it forever, but here it was again, running past me every morning." That Friday, Davis had positioned himself on the trail before dawn, in a secluded spot between the parking area and Eagle Point. He'd brought one of his large river rocks, the smooth, heavy ones he used to weight down his easel on windy days. "I told myself I just wanted to talk to her," Davis said. "Tell her how much her kindness meant. But when she stopped, when I tried to touch her arm, she pulled away. She looked scared. Of me. This harmless old man. And I couldn't bear that look. I just wanted it to stop. I picked up the rock. I didn't think. Rebecca had died instantly from the blow to the back of her head." Davis, stronger than he'd appeared, driven by adrenaline and panic, had carried her body to the marshy area he knew well from years of painting there. He'd buried her beneath the creek bank, knowing the water-saturated ground would eventually collapse and hide his crime. He'd staged the jacket and shoes at Eagle Point, hoping to suggest she'd jumped or run away. "I wanted to die," Davis said, tears streaming. "Every day since, I've wanted to die. But I was too much of a coward. 20 years. Every single day I saw her face. Every painting I made was trying to capture what I'd destroyed. The memory card from the key case yielded one final piece of evidence. photos Rebecca had taken during her run that morning. The last photo, timestamped at 6:13 a.m., showed the sunrise over Willow Creek. In the background, barely visible, was a figure with an easel. Davis Monroe, waiting. The trial took place in June 2023. Davis pleaded guilty. The judge sentenced him to life in prison, though everyone knew it was a symbolic gesture. Davis was dying. Sofia Torres was in the courtroom. She'd waited 20 years. When given the chance to speak, she approached the defense table where Davis sat hunched in his wheelchair. "You painted her," Sofia said quietly. "You made her into art. Into something beautiful for you. But she was a person. My daughter. She had dreams. Patients who needed her. A future. And you took all of it because of your selfishness." Davis couldn't look at her. He died in the prison medical unit on August 19, 2023, 2 months after his conviction. He was 92 years old. Rebecca Torres was finally laid to rest in Charlotte, next to her father, at a private ceremony attended only by family and close friends. Chen stood at the back, paying respects to a woman he'd never met but had fought for across 2 decades. The NCSBI held a press conference detailing how genetic genealogy had solved the case, adding it to a growing list of cold cases resolved through the technology. Willow Creek returned to its peaceful rhythms. But the 20-year lie left scars. The community center removed Davis Monroe's donated watercolors, beautiful landscapes now tainted with unbearable knowledge. The trail was rededicated with a memorial bench at Eagle Point, in memory of Dr. Rebecca Torres, who brought healing to our community. And every September morning, as the mist rises from Willow Creek and runners lace up their shoes, they move a little faster through the shadows. Because Willow Creek learned what every small town eventually learns: darkness doesn't announce itself. Sometimes it sits on a bench with a sketchbook, painting sunrises, waiting for the right moment to destroy something beautiful. If this story moved you, please subscribe and hit the like button. Every subscription helps us continue investigating cold cases that families are still waiting to solve. Drop a comment telling us where you're watching from and which unsolved case you'd like us to cover next.